Bladesworn has not been in the most favorable position ever since a series of nerfs, including dampening the synergy with ammunition, balancing its damage around the assumption that it will have might stacks, and the removal of CC from the Dragon Slash trait. Obviously, this won't end well when every core specialization for the warrior has traits revolving around disabling enemies such as stability from defense, weakness or quickness from strength, fury and adrenaline from arms. Even if they nerfed Dragon Slash to be a daze instead of a stun would be fine, but it got hit pretty hard. However, there used to be a Rifle Bladesworn build that has returned because while Rifle was pretty weak before and Bladesworn carried it, now the Rifle has been buffed quite a bit to make up for the nerfs to Bladesworn, and with the added Immobilize from the Tactics trait line, we can still lock down enemies for bursts with the Rifle even though we don't have CC from the Dragon Slash. So in this video I'll be showing a Guild Wars 2 World vs. World roaming build for the Bladesworn that works well in solo situations and in groups due to the ability to share might to allies. You might be asking why Rifle on Bladesworn if Bladesworn is bad. You can play Core, Spellbreaker, or Berserker with Rifle. Yeah, Berserker is probably the best alternative for a Rifle build because Gunflame hits hard, but it's a bit of a cheese montage build, not great for surviving focus or exploring anywhere outside the safety of your Zerg or towers. Core is okay, but Killshot is still way too slow and telegraphed, and you have very low mobility when enemies jump on top of you, which is the biggest counter to Rifle besides Reflects. So Bladesworn is actually really good for Rifle because the Dragon Slash and Gunblade allow you to defend yourself when enemies jump on top of you, and to reposition so you can maintain distance to actually cast your Rifle skills. Before getting into the specifics, if you like this content then please like and subscribe and support me by becoming a member of the channel. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Now the build is pretty simple. We want to get as many damage modifiers as possible, otherwise we just hit like a wet noodle. So full Berserker or some Demolishers if you want to be a bit tankier, with Pack Runes for the extra crit chance and a little bit of boon duration. We have Might, Fury, Swiftness, Resistance, Protection, and Stability, so generic boon duration does come in handy. For the Rifle, I use Cleansing and Accuracy, so with Fury you should have 80 to 90% crit chance. Normally you don't want to optimize that much for crit chance in PvP modes because it's too much of a trade-off, but here it's worth it because the Guns and Glory buff from Bladesworn gives a lot of critical damage, and we can't utilize the Vision Sigil effectively on Bladesworn like we can on other warrior specializations. For the Relic, I take Earth because it gives some extra defense against projectiles with the Magnetic Aura, and more protection uptime because this build can be susceptible to burst damage. But if you only want more damage, then you can go for the Stormsinger Relic, or if you go for any of the on-heal relics like General, Twin Generals, or the one that gives you protection durability, that can also be good. For traits, you need strength on any Bladesworn build to do any damage, which is nice because we don't really need discipline on a Bladesworn since weapon swapping is not that necessary. Then I take Tactics, even though you can go for defense for more reflects and cleansing, but Tactics gives some decent sustain and damage as well, which is really needed. So in strength, I take the Resistance and Might on using a heal skill. Immobilize and Blind can be pretty harsh for Bladesworns because we don't have discipline to remove them, so the Resistance is nice to ignore those conditions until they run out. Great Fortitude grants extra vitality and ferocity per power, which is why Berserker is the most value stat to take. It has the highest amount of power to convert into other stats. Then you can take Might Makes Right for most roaming situations, but if you want even more damage and have allies supporting you, go for Berserker's Power. In Tactics, there's even more boon synergy with Empowered, granting us extra damage per boon we have on us, which we often have around 4 to 5 of them. Then we get extra healing when granting might to allies, including ourselves. Leg Specialist is a very important trait that immobilizes enemies when you cripple them on a 12-second internal cooldown per player you hit, and it increases damage to enemies with movement inhibiting conditions. This works really well with the Rifle 3, which cripples, but now it becomes an immobilize every 12 seconds. Then Empower Allies, because the might speaks for itself. And there's a choice between all 3 of the Tactics Grandmaster traits. I like Martial Cadence because the extra bit of stability helps to prevent being locked down, and this build has tons of sustain as long as it can keep casting skills, so that ensures you can survive long enough to get your sustain. But as soon as you get to playing with a group, the other two Grandmaster traits are better. In smaller groups, the extra healing from Vigorous Shouts can be nice to support allies with a little bit of healing, and in larger groups, Phalanx Strength is king because you get so much value out of sharing might to the max number of allies, since you'll always be near at least 5 people. Choose what you prefer, but a good general rule is Martial Cadence. When you're solo, when you're in a group of 5 or less, take Vigorous Shouts, and in a group of 6 or more, take Phalanx Strength. Then for the Bladesworn, take the Swiftness on movement skills. You'll always have this because movement skills are going to happen naturally, but you can use the Rifle 4 backwards or Gunblade 5 if you're without Swiftness at the start of a fight. Lush Forest is where our big value comes from because whenever an ammunition skill is used when it's at full stacks, it will recharge all of the warrior skills by 1 second. And since 4 of the rifle skills are ammo skills, 4 of the gunblade skills, the heal skill for Great Justice, and 2 of the dragon trigger skills are ammo skills, there are many opportunities to reduce your cooldowns, so you basically never run out of damage and sustain so long as you use all of your skills when they're max ammunition, instead of depleting their ammo by spamming them too quickly. This is easier said than done because in real fights, you might need to speed up your rotation to secure a kill faster, or use your evades and heals sooner because someone is bursting you faster than you can sustain. So don't overthink it and tunnel vision on value, because sometimes focusing on maximizing the efficiency of the process is not efficient for your goals. Then Daring Dragon is the new Grandmaster to take because Unyielding Dragon no longer stuns, and while dragon slashes that cannot be blocked or blinded are nice, we don't actually need that with this build. The reason for that is because Daring Dragon doesn't need you to hit for you to get the boons, so you get 10 might and fury just by shooting it off, which gives you the sustain from applying might regardless of how much you charge the Dragon Slash. Then the Dragon Slash Reach, which is the 3 skill in Dragon Trigger, is already unblockable at a baseline, but the 2 skill is still great for its mobility and because the animation has multiple hit windows during its animation, making it hard for enemies to dodge it. Also remember that entering Dragon Trigger gives protection, which can reduce your susceptibility to burst, and whenever you hit with an explosion, you get the Guns and Glory buff, which increases ferocity by 250, or basically 16% crit damage. So Rifle 3 is our most important skill here because it gives cripple, vulnerability, and an explosion. So this counts for Guns and Glory, so it's going to give you 16% crit damage. It's going to immobilize them, give you more damage because they're immobilized, and it's going to do a decent amount of damage itself. And so we always want to use that and for Great Justice at the start, because that's going to basically set up our burst damage for the Rifle 2, which is our hardest hitting skill, but it doesn't hit so hard when you don't have Might and Fury or all the other damage modifiers. So use the 3 to get the damage modifiers, 2 to do the damage. Now the 4 skill is really nice because it has a lot of different uses. You can use it to get out of Immobilize, so if you're immobilized, just use the 4 and it dodges you back, you get out of the Immobilize. So that's really nice because we don't have Discipline, and Bladesworns are kind of susceptible to Immobilize otherwise. So Rifle is really nice on Bladesworn, and it will immobilize the target when you shoot that shot. But it's a little bit weird because it will not like turn you around while you're in the middle of the animation, so you have to be facing them, which means you have to be dodging away. So if you're chasing someone, you can't chase them with the Rifle 4 and then turn around and immobilize them. You got to kind of choose between the two. So it's kind of like a defensive immobilize usually, or you can use it when you're in close proximity, because then it will hit and then you'll still be in range for your other things. So you can go with the 4 skill at the start if you're in range, but generally just the 3 into the 2 with for Great Justice, get all those damage modifiers, and doing 2.5k per hit is pretty good. I've seen 3k on squishies. It adds up a lot with 5 hits. So that's your main like burst combo, is the 3 for Great Justice and the 2. But then you want to do the Rifle Butt, which recharges all of your rifle skills, even if you don't hit the enemy. So you do the 3 into the 2 or whatever, and then you 5, and then you do the 3 into 2 again. And this gives you a lot of damage over time. And you can also save it to knock back enemies in melee range, but you don't need to do this, and oftentimes I don't do it because it's just kind of hard to land melee skills. So yeah, I just use it for the cooldown reduction, and it also helps you to keep the maximum stacks so you can get that Lush Forest synergy. Now once you've used quite a bit of your skills there, you can use your heal skill to get some resistance, or just to get those cooldowns going, because you're getting a lot of value from your cooldown reduction and it's not being used on those skills that are already on max. Then you want to swap to either your Gunblade or use Dragon Trigger. Your Gunblade is going to give you some ranged and melee potential and some good defense, so it's good to swap to this when you need a little bit of peel for yourself. The 5 skill is for mobility, and it gives you some more fury. The 4 skill is a Aegis application on yourself, so it'll block an attack, but it also creates a missile projectile blocking area for like 1 second in that area. So just kind of spam this when you're being shot at by rangers. And it also does a good amount of damage in melee range, so you want to use this in people's faces a lot of the time, because it'll also block their attack. Usually when you're trading with enemies, they'll do a big attack when you're on top of them, and this trades very well because it creates that Aegis. So you'll go in with the 5, use the 4 in melee range, then maybe the 2, because this gives you a lot of Guns and Glory buff, because it's a multi-hitting explosion, so it gives you multiple applications of Guns and Glory. So we've got this duration for a really long time because of that. So once you've used at least one of your Gunblade skills, because you want to get those cooldowns going so that you can get the value from the Lush Forest, and then move on to your Dragon Trigger by pressing F2. This starts charging up your charges, and you generally don't want to sit there charging because there's really no need to, but you also charge it pretty fast, so it's not a big deal if you sit there for an extra second and kind of like wait for enemies to dodge or whatever. But you've got the option to do the 1 skill, the 2 skill, or the 3 skill for your Dragon Slashes. The 1 is going to do the highest amount of damage, but I rarely use this because it doesn't give you any mobility, it's easy to avoid, and it's not like the 2nd skill, which has a movement tied to it, and it has multiple windows in which it's going to hit. So what that means is when they dodge and you're still in range, it might hit them after their dodge. So this is just really good for mind gaming people and making them use multiple dodges for one of your cooldowns. And then the 3 skill is the Reach, which, as you can see here, it's an explosion and it's unblockable. So this hits through blocks, and you don't need the trait Unyielding Dragon for that. So I often will use the 3 skill because it's unblockable, but also because I generally want to be at range so that I can use my rifle skills. I don't need to be in melee all the time. Although there are times where you do want to be melee, like when you're going against classes that have a lot of reflect on them, and this build has a lot of projectiles, so it gets countered by reflects pretty bad. So in that situation, you'd want to use the Dragon Slash 2 to get into melee range. I don't want to fall off this cliff here, but then you'd go into melee, use the 2 skill for melee, just auto attack them, use the 4. Try not to use the projectiles because they'll get reflected. So if I were to do the entire rotation, it would look something like this. Start with Rifle 4, if possible, then Rifle 3 with for Great Justice, Rifle 2, use Rifle Butt while kiting because you might not be able to use it in melee range, then use the Rifle 3 into Rifle 2 again, Rifle 4 if possible, then go into melee, swap into your Gunblade, go into melee with the 5, 4 to trade well, and then 2 to get your Guns and Glory buff. Then use the Artillery Slash. If you've got another stack of For Great Justice, use it. Then after we've used one of all of our ammo skills, we want to use Tactical Reload to get them back and do the same thing. So 5, 4, 2 into 3. You can kite with the 3, and then you want to go into your F2 Dragon Trigger. We can use the 4 and 5, and then we choose between the 3 and the 2. I'm going to go with the 3 because I'm at range. And then we're going to, if we've got cooldowns, we can use the Gunblade 2 is a pretty low cooldown, so we can just use that to reduce our cooldowns, possible. But if all of these things have not max stacks, then you probably don't want to use them. But if you do, use them again. And if you don't, then swap back to rifle and just repeat. Do the 3 into 4, 2 combo, 5, 3, 2, 4. Go in. We've got Tactical Reload again, so we're going to do that. 2, 4, 3. We've used all of our skills, and now we can go for the Dragon Trigger. Use the 2, And we're kind of going low on cooldown, so we're going to just be a little bit conservative here. Use the rifle 3, 2 for great justice. We can use our heal skill as well. And now we probably could have used our rifle 3 one more time. Now we've got all of our cooldowns here, so we want to use these. And the 4 skill's on a longer cooldown, so I can maybe use it or not, but you can see the tactical reload is a very low cooldown because I'm reducing its recharge all the time. So even though I might not have these cooldowns, I can still sometimes use them when they're not at max stacks because I will get that extra stack back from tactical reload. So like for example, the 4 skill or the 2 skill here, maybe I'll use it and then I've got tactical reload and now I've got the 5 into the 3 into the 2 and now look, my 4 is already almost up, so I can use that now. So you kind of want to be looking at your ammunition there, but also it's somewhat forgiving to not look at it sometimes. Another thing I want to show people is not just the burst rotations, but the kiting rotations, because a lot of times people just give up and they just don't try to escape from outnumbered situations because they feel like they don't have the mobility to do that. But in builds that I create, I always try to have at least some mobility, so there's definitely the potential to escape outnumbered situations, and you should definitely see that in some of the clips. But what is the outnumbered or the kiting rotation then? How do we get the most movement speed to go from here to over to that side of the map as fast as possible? I'm going to stay over here because I want to stay in combat, because in normal situations I'm going to be in combat and that's going to give me flow to use my dragon trigger. But when you're not playing a class that needs to be in combat to get its mobility, then you want to like see how far you can go and how fast. But right here, what we're going to do is we're going to do an about face rifle 4. So we're going to be running this way. We're being chased or whatever. So I'm going to hold my left click, press the about face button, and then immediately rifle 4. Hold the right mouse button and the left mouse button so that I move forwards afterwards. And that's going to make me face the camera right. And so now that is pretty much what we're going to be using the rifle 4 for, is the about face to get mobility when we're being chased. Then you can use the rifle 5 to get more of them, then do it again. And then you always want to use dragon trigger whenever possible, because it's got a pretty nice cooldown to it. It's pretty low, and the 2 skill gives you a lot of mobility, gives you protection, and it will also, I believe, it will give you might, right? Because you're going to be using the daring dragon, which is going to heal you. So it's going to heal you and it's going to give you protection and mobility. So it's just really nice to use that off cooldown. However, make sure that you've used your rifle 4 before going into dragon trigger, because it's going to lock you out of the rifle for longer when you do that. It's going to stick you in the gun saber afterwards. So your gun saber cooldowns, you want to save those for last, because you have access to the gun saber more of the time due to how dragon trigger works. So when you're in the dragon trigger or the gun blade, you're going to use the 5 skill and the 4 skill to kind of like kite, and you can also use the 2 and the 3, right? Because they will give you lower cooldowns. So just even if you're not hitting people and you've got max stacks of the rifle or the gun blade 2, just use it because it will reduce your cooldowns. Now you can also hit enemies from behind because you don't need to face them. So use the rifle or the gun blade 3 from behind, don't have to be facing them, and keep using the 4 and the 5. And if you're in a situation where you really need to get some mobility, then yeah, use the 5 and the 4 when you are not at max stacks, but you've also got tactical reload, so keep dodging using the 5 and 4, and then dragon trigger, use the 2, rifle 4 backwards, rifle 4 backwards again, and then we're going to use the rifle 5, do another about face. I've got my dragon trigger up, use the 2, and then we're going to 4 and 5. I almost fall off the cliff there. Dodge, use the heal skill when you've got a gap in your rotation, because that'll give you resistance as well. And then we're going to dodge here, and then what you want to do when you go into dragon trigger is use the flicker step, the 5 skill, to port ahead as well. But you don't want to delay your 2 skill by doing that, so you want to be really quick, but you also have to be careful, because if you press the 2 skill and you just mash it, you can sometimes kind of like cancel your dragon trigger, because Bladesworn's a really clunky class. So just make sure you get the timing on that through muscle memory. Just practice. Go in here and practice this, because you can survive a lot of these situations. Just got to know the priority and the You gotta be careful with the dragon trigger as well. You need to de-target, right? So I can be, you know, targeting someone, and then I think the rifle 4 doesn't... Okay, yeah, the rifle 4 doesn't determine your direction that you dodge backwards based on targeting, so you don't need to de-target for that. You just need to about face. But for the dragon trigger, like for example, if you're gonna escape from someone and you press the 2 and then you target something else, you're gonna go towards them and then you're gonna die. So you have to de-target by left clicking or using the where is it? It's called the something auto. Where is it? It's in targeting, isn't it? Yeah, it's called lock auto target. That's the keybind. So if you want to de-target, you do 2. And actually, if you are targeting something when you start using the skill, you cannot stop targeting that thing. So you need to either retarget to a better target to make it go the direction you want, or you need to just never have targeted something when you started that skill. Now this can also be nice because stealthies, when they go in stealth, you will always target them even when they're in stealth. And so you can hit them with the Dragon Trigger 3 from stealth, and it will just follow them because it knows where they are even while they're in stealth. Alright, so let's see how this works in real situations while roaming. So here's a couple players here. We just immediately want to find a target and target them for our team because we can immobilize them. So I land my rifle 4 into 3 into 2. They use their heal skills, so I back off. And I notice they're coming towards me, so I'm going to swap to my gunblade, use the 4 immediately for the Aegis. Just use one of every one of my skills if possible. Then I go into the Dragon Slash, use the 3 skill. And we can do a lot of damage with our allies. So I'm roaming right now with the Deadeye, and they just do so much damage. I don't even really need to do that much damage because first of all, Deadeyes do good damage, but I've given at least 20 might to them because my Dragon Slash gives 10 and my For Great Justice gives 12. So we just do insane damage with other players on this build, and that just makes it so much more effective when trying to get kills with your team, especially when you can immobilize targets for your team. Now here's another situation with a little bit more scaled up, but the same kind of idea where we want to go for the target by using our 4-2-3 or whatever, and then we, for Great Justice, they have projectile blocks, so we can't go in immediately. We do the combo again, but I'm starting to get focused, so I kite away with the Gunblade 5. I use all of my healing from the shout because even though I'm not getting high value, I need the momentum and the tempo right now to survive. So I use a lot of my cooldowns there. I'm pretty low on cooldowns. I see there's a Zerg behind us, but we gotta stay with our group here, so we're gonna push in still. Now we want to find a target and immobilize and burst them with our team while sharing the might. I use Rifle 3 for Great Justice into Rifle 2, and it's just that easy to get some kills sometimes. I Rifle 4 backwards, and I see the Zerg is coming in. I Rifle 4 again because I see someone's running right for me. I do the Dragon Slash Reach because I don't want to go in because we're outnumbered. And then I'm going to immediately get away. Use my 5 skill there. I've got no more ammunition on it because we need to get out now. So we're not going for value right here, we're going for tempo. But we can go for a nice little kill here if people overextend. And that's why the Rifle 4 is pretty nice because you can use it to kite, but also set up your counter burst at the same time. But we weren't able to get that kill, so we're going to keep kiting here. And I'm going to go into the Dragon Slash for mobility. And I'm going to turn around here and target something with the Rifle 4 so that I could potentially immobilize it while also moving backwards. I can use my Dragon Slash here again and use my Gunblade mobility skills, dodge in between them, and use my heal skill just for the resistance so I don't get immobilized. Dragon Slash one more time, and by now we're pretty safe because we're at a tower. So you can see there's still quite a bit of mobility on this build. Now this is a 1v1 against a Condi Mirage, which is not an easy matchup for any class, and it's not great for me either because I have a lot of susceptibility to conditions because I didn't go defense. So my cleanse is mostly from the Cleansing Sigil and the Shake It Off, but fortunately Shake It Off has a really low cooldown because we have the Lush Forest synergy. So I land a really nice Rifle 3 into the 4. We get some damage on them, which forces them to use their heal, but they have a lot of reflex as well from the mirror from Mesmer, and they have a lot of ranged conditions, so I have to either kill the clones or I need to pressure them enough that they have to shatter. So I'm keeping up the pressure non-stop. They have mirror up, so I can't use reflects, and I swap there so that I can get those conditions off me. And now I don't really have much cooldowns, and I have a decent amount of conditions on me. I use Shake It Off there, but I'm really low still. My Earth Relic was proc there, which was nice to allow me to use another one of my heal skills and to stop those projectiles from coming at me. I missed my Dragon Slash, which wasn't a big deal because I still got the healing from it. And now we go for a burst. They block it with Aegis. I believe they have the manipulation trait that gives them Aegis. I go for a Dragon Slash here. It's unblockable, so I don't think they know that it's unblockable because they went for the Scepter 2 there. But I go for the stability here so I don't get CC'd. Dragon Slash Reach hits. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but we land a good amount of volley hits there, which is nice. It shows that the Mesmer is kind of out of cooldowns because they didn't dodge that. I go for a Reach here. They dodge it, and I'm going to block that with the Gunblade 4. All those projectiles are going to give me a lot of condies. I don't want that. And I'm just constantly using my cooldowns, even though I don't think they're going to hit all the time, because I want to be constantly getting my Condi Cleanse back from the Shake It Off. So here is pretty dangerous. I'm going to Shake It Off again. Use my heal skill, maybe. I might want to save that to get more value on the cooldown from Lush Forest. I'm just keeping distance because, yeah, there's just going to be a lot of condies on me. And I have a decent amount of range too. Land a really nice Rifle 4 into the 3. A little bit of damage and immobilized because Mirages cannot use their dodge when they're immobilized. My Earth Relic is giving me a lot of presence there because I can't get projectiles on me too. And they've got... I hit them with the Rifle Butt there with the Rifle 5, which is nice because it eases off on the pressure a little bit. But here I'm going really aggressive because I feel like they're out of cooldowns. I landed really nice Gunblade 4 into their projectile there on the pistol, so I don't take all that pressure from that. And my Dragon Slash Reach hits for 5k, which is pretty decent damage that will probably stick if they're low on cooldowns. Rifle 3, they mirror, so I have to stop casting. My Earth Relic is back now because I use my Tactical Reload, which gives me a lot of pressure because I can just attack them without getting condied from them usually, because a lot of their attacks are projectiles too. Now I use the Dragon Slash Force, which is really aggressive and kind of greedy, but I need to go for the damage because I need to get this kill because they're going to win the sustain here because I'm kind of running out of cooldown. I land a really nice Rifle 4 into the Rifle 3 from the Immobilize, and the Dragon Slash Reach, they poured out of range, but I know that they're really low. I have my Earth Relic, so I'm going really aggressive, and I need to finish this now. And I've got my Dragon Slash Reach. It hits, and I can finish them off with the Rifle 3 because I know that they're pretty much out of cooldowns. So here's a 1v1 against a Hollowsmith. This matchup is difficult because Hollowsmiths can stay on top of you and blind you constantly with the explosives trait, and my rifle skills will often be interrupted because they're constantly running around me and my rifle skills cannot be cast on someone that's behind me, so they just interrupt. And that's very inefficient because I just waste animations when that happens. So as you can see, they ran behind me there, and that just made it really hard for me to do anything. So you want to swap into the Gunblade or use Dragon Trigger when that happens, because you're not going to be able to use your rifle skills, or your Rifle 2 mostly, because that one is a long cast and you just can't guarantee that you can always use it. Now if you get the knockback like I just did, it's pretty nice, but otherwise it's going to be hard to be able to keep them at a distance unless you use your Dragon Slash Boost, the 2 skill. So I'm going to pretty much always use the Dragon Slash Boost in this situation because, first of all, it gets me distance so I can start using my rifle. And second of all, because the boost gives you a multi-window hit, which basically means that at multiple times during the animation, it's trying to hit the enemy. So if it misses early on, it can still hit them later on. And what that means is if I'm blinded, it might remove the blind and then hit them afterwards. Or if they're dodging, it might evade the beginning of the animation, but hit them in the later animation. So the boost is still really good, but the reach is unblockable. And I guess you could say that the boost is sort of unblindable if it hits twice. So that's why I kind of like using both depending on the situation. So yeah, you can't go for extreme value all the time in every situation, as I said earlier, because the way that the Hollow is playing in this matchup is very aggressive. He's kind of forcing the fight to end as soon as possible by playing as aggressively as possible, which is forcing me to not be able to use my rifle skills, but also is not allowing me to get value on my Lush Forest. So in this situation, you can see my cooldowns, they're all on the either I have no cooldown or I have 1 ammo, so I'm not getting Lush Forest value at all in this matchup, so it's not great for me. So it's a really tough situation, but that doesn't mean that using my skills is not good. Like, if I still use them, then I'm still getting value on hitting them, I just get them less often, so I need to use them more efficiently, and yeah, use the tactical reload. Now I get CC comboed here, which is very dangerous, but I'm able to survive because I had a little bit of protection left. My tactical reload is up, so I'm going to use that and just use my last charge of my skills here. They're in the mortar for a little bit there, and I kind of want to be in my rifle when they're in mortar, not when they're in Hollow Forge, because they're going to be constantly in melee when they're in Hollow Forge. So I want to be on my rifle when they're in rifle or on their mortar. I want to be in Gunblade or Dragon Trigger when they're in Hollow Forge. So now that we're here, we can probably use the rifle. They're going to go Hollow Forge, so I'm going to swap to my Dragon Trigger. Dragon Trigger and Gunblade are great for peeling for yourself or fighting in melee, and rifle is good for bursting or range, right? So we kind of want to adapt to that. But you can see they're really low here, and we're going to get them down from the Gunblade 2. So that is pretty much how you play the Rifle Bladesworn. It's a pretty unique build that I think is very fun, and you know, it's a pretty underrated or kind of like underdog class right now, and so it's nice to see that this unicorn quote-unquote build can still be viable. And yeah, like I said earlier, if you guys like this content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.